Good morning, everyone. My name is Lillian McDermott, and I'm your new Vice Principal of Instruction. I'd like to welcome you to the 2014-15 school year here at Town Middle School. I've had the pleasure of meeting several of you as you've come to school to set up your classrooms or you've stopped by the office. However, I haven't had the opportunity to meet all of you, but I do look forward to doing so, as well as to getting to know the 600 students that are part of our school. As a little background about myself, I am a language arts literacy teacher, and I have been one for 24 years. I have taught children from grades 2 through 8 in both a general education setting as well as in a resource room setting. I hold a bachelor's degree in elementary education and special education from Kutztown University, as well as a master's degree from Rutgers in special education. As a language arts literacy teacher, it should be of no surprise that I have a great passion for reading. I like to read for professional purposes as well as for leisure purposes. And this summer I've had the opportunity to read some great beach reads. If you ever go to your mailbox and see an article in there that's been photocopied, I've probably done that because not only do I like reading for professional purposes, I like sharing that information. So I do look forward to sharing what I do learn. I am a very outgoing person, and I love interacting with people. I am bilingual, and I speak Spanish fluently. The families in our suburban community are diverse socioeconomically as well as culturally, and if you ever need assistance with translating or any other form of help, I will be more than happy to do so, to help you in any way that I possibly can. What I've done today is I've prepared a brief introduction for you of what I call the principles, or these are principles of teaching and learning that I would like to see reflected in your classroom. And what I've done is I have named them the architectural framework for excellence. If at any point throughout this brief presentation you have any questions, please feel free to interject and ask or comment. I'm always, I welcome anything that you have to say. So let's take a look at the very first principle, and that is that of a supportive learning environment. And what that is, as you can see, it's a safe environment that is supported by the teacher in which high, clear expectations and positive relationships are fostered. In order for you to foster these positive relationships, you need to develop respect and rapport with your students. In order to do that, you first need to establish a relationship with them. Get to know them. Get to know what their interests are. Accept their individual differences and value their student diversity. That's the first step in establishing that relationship. Also very important is to speak to them in a very positive manner. And if and when you do need to reprimand a student, please try to do so in a very subtle manner and a way that is respectful of the student's dignity. That saying, if you give respect, you get respect, is very true. It's also very important that we manage interactions amongst students. We need to model for them how to be respectful toward each other. It's important that we do this because this is what establishes a safe environment for students, and when they feel safe, students are very willing to take intellectual risks without the fear of being ridiculed. Another important component to a supportive learning environment is that of establishing routines and procedures. When students know what is expected of them and what to do, there are seamless transitions between activities. And what this does is this allows for additional or maximum instructional time. The evidence suggests that students learn more effectively and achievement increases, partly because of the classroom environment, because they respond better to it, as well as, but more in particular, they respond better to the teacher. is that of individualized learning. And this is also known as differentiation or differentiated instruction. This is when instruction is modified to help with the students' diverse academic needs and their learning styles, and for them to master the same challenging academic content. Carol Ann Tomlinson, who is an expert in the field, said differentiation means students, providing students with multiple options for taking in information. Typically, when we think of differentiated instruction, we associate that with children who struggle, but it is not just for children to struggle. In order for our learners to be successful, teachers need to be aware of the variety of needs, and they need to be responsive to the different readiness levels, as well as their interest levels and their learning profiles. We have children who have very diverse needs in our classrooms, and we need to be aware of that. A one-size-fits-all approach is not very effective. We can differentiate based on classroom elements of readiness, interest, and learning profiles. We can differentiate content, which is what the student needs to know. And we can do that by providing students with different activities. You can give them varied reading levels. You can present information through both visual and auditory modes. There are numerous ways that content can be modified so that it meets the needs of our learners. We can also modify the process, and that's the activities that the students engage in to make sense and to master their concepts. We can do this by using tiered activities. Maybe have interest centers where there are subcategories of the topic that they're learning about. These are just a couple of examples of ways that you can modify the process. And we can also modify the product, which is obviously the culminating project that requires students to participate and apply what they have learned. And we can do this by giving students the ability to choose the type of activity that they would like to do to express their learning. We could do this through giving them the option of maybe creating a puppet show, or perhaps a video, or creating a song, writing a letter. They can address the different learning modalities. This maximizes learning for all students. And when the teachers accommodate the learning and the needs of all students, they're challenged and they're not overwhelmed. This brings us to our third principle, and that is one of authentic learning. And this is the process in which teachers purposely engage students in direct experiences. This is thought of as learning through direction or learning by doing. Teachers can create activities that relate to real life and have significance beyond school and are directed to real audiences. When activities are authentic, as you can see, the learner sees significance and relates to mirrored life experiences. They develop their critical thinking skills. They learn to analyze information. They communicate ideas. They reach logical conclusions. And they collaborate with others. And they reach multiple solutions. So, authentic learning, when this happens and when learning is based on this, when learning is based on experience and discovery rather than on abstract concepts, students have a higher rate of retention and apply information to new and similar situations. And what this does is this prepares them to be 21st century learners. These skills are transferable and will hopefully carry through with them in the future. Our fourth principle is that of cooperative learning. And this is the approach to teaching and learning that involves groups of students working together to solve a problem, create a product, or to complete a task. These groups are structured so that each member's Each member's success is dependent on the group's success, and this helps to develop interpersonal skills and hold students accountable. When students participate in cooperative learning activities, they actively engage in, they actively exchange ideas with peers, which increases and reinforces motivation, as well as it increases the interest level of the subject matter that they are learning about, as well as it promotes critical thinking. When students learn to work in a team approach, they develop the necessary skills for the workplace, because when we work in teams and groups of people, and children need to learn to do so. Our fifth element for excellence is that of active engagement. And active engagement is when students engages the students in the learning process and requires that students perform meaningful learning activities and think about what they are doing. Students are cognitively engaged. They are not passively receiving information. They are actually doing something. In order to motivate and keep them actively engaged, we need to provide them with different opportunities to interact with the subject matter as well as to interact with each other, their peers. We can incorporate activities such as partner share, true-false sort, peer teaching, holding the floor. These are just a few examples of the different types of activities that will actively engage students. This type of learning emphasizes active engagement, and it helps students process and retain information, and as well as develop their higher order thinking skills. Our sixth principle is that of student-centered. Student-centered is when we're focusing instruction on the needs of the learner, their preferences as well as their interest. This is a place where the teacher considers the needs of the students as both groups and individuals. The teacher is also a facilitator, and the students are encouraged to participate in the learning process all of the time. The teacher, as the facilitator, is seen as a member of the learning process, and she is somebody, or he is somebody, who guides the students and manages and directs their activities, but they are also very much part of that learning process. And when students engage in these student-centered activities, they take responsibility for their understanding, they develop a desire for lifelong learning, they retain knowledge, as well as gain social skills. Our seventh principle is that of self-directed. And this is where the learner is the responsible owner and manager of their learning process. And they, as a responsible owner and manager of the learning process, the teacher is the manager for the learning experience. This is a highly collaborative approach where peers are adding to the learning, and there are benefits to this self-directed learning because the benefits are both for the teacher as well as for the students. For the students, they get to, it meets their needs, their learning needs. It increases their need for autonomy, and at this level, in middle school, that's what our children are looking to do. They're looking to be autonomous. So this meets their needs for increased autonomy, as well as it helps to achieve meaningful learning experiences that will last into adulthood. How this helps the teacher is in the interaction with the student as they get to discuss the work. The teacher can then garner any information that they need as to the progress of the student, and they can direct the instruction based on the student's need. Our eighth principle is that of inquiry-driven. And this approach is focused on questions, critical thinking, and problem solving. This involvement leads to understanding. We need to teach children to ask questions that are of high quality, and as teachers, we model that. We need to model questions of high cognitive challenge that invite students to formulate hypotheses, to make connections, and to challenge previously held views. Bloom's taxonomy is a great framework as well as a great resource for constructing these types of questions. Our highly effective questioning encourages students to make connections among concepts or events that were previously unrelated to them, and it helps them to arrive at new understandings of complex materials. This brings us to our 9th principle, which is that of reflective assessment. And this is a formative approach that emphasizes joint participation of teachers and students in the assessment process. It's consistent with the vision of a teacher being a co-partner and a guide in a common enterprise. The purpose of reflective assessment is to improve students' learning, which means that this needs to be a very important component of the actual teaching and learning process. Students need to view teaching, learning, and assessment as intertwined concepts, and they need to see the assessment as part of the learning process and not something that is a separate evaluation form. The benefits of reflective assessment are both for the student as well as for the teacher. The student takes the ownership of their learning and is able to conference with the teacher and receive feedback and discuss their work. The teacher benefits from the student feedback and is able to tailor and direct their instruction to meet the needs of the learner. There's some strategies that you can use to teach children how to be to reflect on their assessments are I learned statements, or think aloud, clear and unclear window, and just work portfolios so they can go back and revisit them and look to see how they have improved and where their mistakes have been made. Last but not least, we have collegial education. And this refers to the existence of high levels of collaboration among and between teachers and principals. And it's characterized by mutual respect, shared work values, cooperation, and specific conversations about teaching and learning. This is a very essential aspect of effectively functioning schools. It greatly impacts the performance of teachers, and as well as the coordination of curriculum within and among the academic subjects, as well as the overall well-being of the school community. This is what distinguishes poorly functioning schools from successful ones. Teaching is often referred to as a solitary profession, and I'm sure that we all can relate to that in some way or form. But it doesn't have to be that way. There is no need for teachers to have to work in a vacuum. Collegiality is a professional attitude that's very well worth developing. It creates a more welcoming teaching and learning environment, and it provides opportunities for ongoing professional development, which supports the dynamic tasks of educating our younger generations. So, as your VP of instruction, I will be doing several things. I will be visiting your classrooms to see all of the wonderful things that you are doing, as well as to get to know the students and interact with them. I will be conducting informal observations as well as walkthroughs, and after them I will provide you with some feedback as to how things went and where I see perhaps that you need to improve. I will also be conducting formal observations, and that won't take place until, later in the year, not later, but in about a month or so. And before we actually have those formal observations, I will meet with you to post-conference, and after the observation, we will meet to, before the observation, we will do pre-conferencing, and after the observation, we will do post-conferencing. I will meet with grade level teachers on a weekly basis during your common planning time, and during this time, I'm hoping to discuss any issues that you may be having in the classroom or with students, as well as to help you incorporate the Common Core standards into your lessons and into your classrooms. I will also be coordinating professional development opportunities for you that will, be ongoing throughout the school year. I will also meet with your content area supervisors to coordinate those efforts and to also be aware of any changes in what is going on in the curriculum in your, specific content area. Lastly, and most importantly, I just need you to know that I am here to support you. I will do whatever I need to do to help you in any way that I can. I have an open door policy, so please don't hesitate to see me. I'm more than willing to help you and have conversations with how things can be improved. I really look forward to meeting all of you, so let's have a great school year. Thank you.